During the exterior portion of your commercial property inspection, you are to inspect the siding. Now, inspecting the siding, it's kind of all encompassing. First, you should consider what is the material, where does it fail, what conditions are present, and any identifying features that are important for your client. So when I think of siding, I can look at this building and see that we have a stone siding. So now when I look at the stone siding, I have to identify to myself, is this a veneer stone or is this solid stone? If it was solid stone, then the stone would be our structure. This would be a masonry structured building. If it's veneer, that means it's nothing more than a siding material, and there's some substructure behind this, in the substrate that is constructing this building. In this particular case, I have a veneer stone. So when I think about veneer stone, I think of the fact it's not structural. If it falls off the building, it does not pose a structural compromise, but nonetheless, it should be properly adhered to the building and properly functioning as it's supposed to. In this particular case, I look at this veneer stone and I make sure I don't have any cracks or any areas that are falling apart. Now, when you think about veneer, I think about two different types of veneers. One would be fully adhered to the substrate, and two, it would have an air gap where we'd have weep holes, and that air gap is between the stone and the substrate. And those weep holes or weep screeds that be across the bottom would allow any moisture that gets behind the stone to evacuate. Now in this building, I don't have weep holes. So without the weep holes, I have to be very attuned to any water so that if water gets behind the stone, it does not have a chance to get out. It can damage the substrate and it can cause structural harm to the building. So as I look at the veneer stone in this building, I want to make sure that I have a stone ledge on the top that's properly sloped, which this is. Water comes down the building and will come off of it. And on top of that, then I can make sure that I don't have any moisture going on the stone. Same conditions in any masonry would be present. I would look for efflorescence, that white salt powder that could be growing. I would look for cracks, and then I would look for any areas that are physically damaged and or delaminating. That would include a walk around the entire perimeter and identifying all of those conditions. Without weep holes, I'm not as concerned with the mulch and the bottom of the stone. It is still a concern, but I'm not as concerned. If it was with weep holes and this landscaping and this mulch was above the weep holes, then those weep holes probably will not drain. But since this building was not designed with a drainage feature, then all I'm going to want to be mindful of is to make sure that I don't have any water damage going on. Another place, if this has a basement, that I would be concerned with is to look at the basement around the rim ledge, because the exterior elements here could affect the structure that we would see on the inside. Maybe if we ever did a basement inspection of this building, we could identify for that. But in this case, I'm going to try to look for any damage going on and any delamination. You could do something as simple as hitting it with your hand, pushing on it, or just watching your eye and making sure everything is in place. But let's see if we can look at some other areas of the veneer siding that have a little bit more significance. It is so easy to get all excited about something, and especially in doing a commercial inspection when you want to do everything you can for your clients. And all of a sudden you come over here and I see that the bottom of this stone pillar has all kinds of damage to it. Again, this is a veneer stone. I have a structure that goes on the inside of this, and this stone is wrapping the structure. But yet I've got all this damage at the bottom. If this damage is pervasive, if this damage is so advanced, it could cause some of these stones to start to topple. I don't see any cracking. I don't see any evidence of this stone sloughing down. So I think it's pretty well adhered, but I see this damage. Now you immediately want to go, oh, this damage is from ... Through the CommSop, we do not have to talk about causation. Causation is not part of what we do. We are an illustration of facts. My fact on my report is I have got advanced cracking and stone damage to the bottoms of the columns. That's what I'm going to report on. I'm not going to report why. Now you're going to get asked why, and that why could be from anything from the drainage of the property to if I go around this corner and I'm going to reach down here, I've got all kinds of rock salt. That could be damage from whoever's maintaining the property in the wintertime and putting salt down, and the salt is causing that damage. But again, causation is not part of our inspection. Our inspection is facts. And I am going to make the fact that I have advanced stone damage to these columns. Let's see if there's anything else interesting around the siding on this property. In looking at the veneer stone, cracks are very important to help diagnose if there's anything else going on. And some things that could go on would be structural compromise or structural problems with the building, because stone will be an excellent reflector of the crack from a foundation. And so when I come to this side of the building, I see this very large crack. And this crack is actually large enough that it's actually gaped and cut through a few of these stones. And so that gives me a little bit of pause and a little bit of something to think about. And first I got to think about, is this structural or is this not structural? And what I have the luxury of is being able to follow this crack down to where it's sitting at the foundation. Now at this foundation, I don't see a crack below it. So if the foundation's not cracked, but this is cracked, then that would give me an inclination that this crack is not structural. Most likely it's water that's got behind and cracked this out with freeze and thaw. And then if I follow this crack up, then I can surmise that it's most likely came from this open seam here at this top row, and water got in, maybe around this window, got behind, freeze, thaw, caused the crack. Again, we don't have to talk about causation, but I looking at a crack and knowing where to heighten the interest to my client and where not to. Yes, you have a crack. Done. But I think it's more important that you just put some sealant around the windows to avoid future water entry. Then you can address the crack. But it is absolutely not something that I would heighten as a structural concern. As part of the exterior inspections, particularly the siding inspection, you're also looking at so many other things, and one would include vegetation. You should always note on your inspection reports things that limit or impede your ability to provide the service for which you promised through your agreement and in the CommSop you were going to provide. One of which, as I look at this building, would be this amount of ivy that's growing up. I have ivy across the entire rear of this building. This ivy does a couple things that I'd like to talk about. One, it blocks my view, and I wanted to see the siding, and now I'm selfish and I can't see it. So I guess I got to tell somebody. So on my report, I'm going to say, could not see the siding because of the ivy. But the other thing to think about, as this ivy grows, it has to latch onto something. And it can go up into the eaves, it can go up into the soffit, it goes and attaches to the masonry, it can go into any other siding material. And that can have moisture against the building. And then lastly, if your building is in an area that's conducive to wood-destroying organisms of any type, it's a habitat. And that alone would be enough to give me concern or give me pause. So walk around every building, look at all the siding materials, look at the structure, look at all those things that pertain to the exterior elements of the covering of the building during your inspections. But looking at this stone, it's going to be important for me to make sure that I look at all of it, not just part of it. I walk the entire property, I document very well, and then lastly, document areas that you can't see, i.e. this ivy. Be safe on your inspections and make sure you document everything.